Hello, it's me, the PS2 review nerd. Today I'm going to be talking about... Okay, no, for real. Hello and welcome to Reps2GOG. Oh, what the fuck? Wrong tapes. Today we're going to be talking about Eternal Ring for the PS2. In accordance with routine I've made for myself, first comes Emulation. I ran Eternal Ring on PCSX2. There was a reported issue where if you entered a specific area of the game, your character would instantly die. This was actually documented in the PS4 port of the game too, funny enough. To fix this, you'll go to Config, Emulation Settings, EE/IOP, and set your round mode to nearest. Also, I had a lot of issues with door noises and stuff bugging out and getting stuck looping. I'm not sure if this is an emulation specific issue or not, but I saw other people having that issue and nobody was able to figure out a fix. If it starts happening, I found saving and loading fixed the issue. I chose Eternal Ring for the next review because I figured if I was going to do one Fromsoft Age Tech release title for the PS2, I might as well do 3 in a row. So before we jump into this game, let's take a look at the back cover and see what we're getting ourselves into. Who said fantasies had to be final? What are they even trying to say here? Hey, this isn't Final Fantasy, but it is a fantasy game. Okay, so what? Giant dragons, precise combat skills, magic rings, and enhanced graphics, cool. So you'll start the game out with one of these monologues that they put in the beginning of RPGs to dump lore at you. It reminds me of one of those prologue texts you'd see at the beginning of a low-budget hentai episode or something. I just feel like if you're going to bombard me with a bunch of names of people and places, I'm not going to remember half of them. Probably more a product of RPGs at the time, though. At least it's narrated, and not badly so, might I add. So basically you'll play as Cain, this lanklet elf-looking guy. He's able to cast magic, something not many can do in this world. Your king sends you off to an island to retrieve something called the Eternal Ring, as it's known to hold great power. You catch a ride on a boat and embark on your journey. As soon as you get into the game, you'll notice that this game is a first-person RPG. I've not played King's Field, Fromsoft's earlier series, but based on the footage I've seen, it plays in similar fashion to those games. Your character controls like a tank. Your left stick, right stick, and D-pad all do the same things though, so you're able to turn left or right while moving forward by using both sticks at once, which is at least a slight improvement. L2 and R2 allow you to look up and down, and L1 and R1 allow you to strafe left and right. Now, I'm not saying this manner of controlling your character is bad, but it definitely feels bad to start out with, especially in a game where you need a decent amount of precision to hit things. So anyway, you got a letter from the king and you're supposed to rendezvous with some troops. You'll enter the troop camp and it's a bunch of houses set up. You'll find a dude who won't wake up, as well as a few other NPCs living in this forward operating base. The assistant captain welcomes you and tells you that the sleeping guy is the captain and he's been really sick recently. There's also a store, a healer, 2 guards, and a guy inspecting some gems around. This is actually shaping up to be a nice little home base for Cain's adventure. By the way, strangely enough, this game features a day-night cycle. You can only talk to one of the guards when it's nighttime and it's his shift. This is pretty cool, honestly, but this is actually the only time I see it utilized in the game. A little bit of wasted potential there, but I digress. While we're here, this is a great chance to talk about the voice acting in the game. As you move around and talk to the NPCs, you'll notice that their voices are either completely ill-fitting for their character or their delivery is so flaccid that it makes my grandfather's dick look like diamonds by comparison. They also did not account for ambient noises in close proximity to NPCs, so you'll end up with a lot of situations like this.
What is it? You're sleeping. Talk to me, man.
I got a friend who went to school for sound engineering and is involved in the voice acting scene and showed him some of these clips.
If you're gonna deliver that ladder, you'd be a lot better off doing it before nightfall.
Okay. So what do you think about this?
Why does he sound like a New York butcher?
I must get the ring. The eternal ring.
Sounds like he's fucking constipated. What the fuck? It's not like... like... You can get louder, dude. I don't know. I think this was just the advent for a lot of voice actors. And this was the time where a lot of them were making their way in. But there was a lot of empty spots to fill, I guess.
I'll upload that full video on the channel later. The link will be in the description. I swear Age Tech just grabbed dudes and put them in the booth and said, alright, you're in a fantasy game, your character's wearing brown. I'm sure the English voice actors could have done well with proper direction. I mean, look at the Japanese voice. Oh wait, there are no Japanese voice actors. Regardless, tone-deaf voice acting is the fastest way to get somebody out of a story-driven game. I know the Age Tech's mentality was probably that American audiences wouldn't respond well to an RPG without any voice acting, and I sympathize with that, but I seriously think you need to go hard or go home in this regard. Regardless, we continue our quest. In order to continue, we'll need to get ourselves a water key to open a blue door blocking our path, and the key is located in a castle beyond the camp. As you make your way through the castle, you'll realize that enemies tend to drop gems, and different types too. You were told by the weird guy in the armory that he'll sell you stuff in exchange for gems. Great. So you'll probably make your way back to town feeling like a gemionaire. Mr. Armory here is selling an assortment of consumables as well as a shiny new sword. Said consumables do helpful stuff such as healing status ailments, healing the status ailment known as damage, and refreshing your mana. Feeling like gems need to have some sort of greater purpose besides being currency, I just bought the sword and saved the rest of them. You'll make your way through the castle, hacking away at anything that comes in your path, whether it be a dexterous sahagin, scuttly crabs, or strange plants that shoot you if you step on their vines. You may have noticed on your way that certain doors are glued shut. Using our infinite guile to solve this conundrum, we found a ring in a chest that lets us shoot fireballs at it. I know this is more of an introduction to magic than a puzzle, but the impression was left on me that I would have to do a lot of these with different types of magic throughout the game. Fortunately, this actually wasn't the case, so we'll call this a net positive bamboozle. Next, we'll open up New Londo Water Park and move to our first boss encounter, the Water Devil. Let me tell you something, I was not particularly impressed with the combat in this game thus far, but the boss really had me on my toes. I was exhilarated. The narrow FOV made the somewhat large arena feel claustrophobic. I had to bob and weave around his blasts of energy, deftly retreating as he charged forward ceaselessly to close gaps, getting hits anywhere I could. This boss felt cool and looked cool as well, despite being basically just a large sahagin. After slaying this foul beast, I was giddy with the thoughts of making my way to the next boss. I collected my spoils and continued forward to obtain the water key I'd been searching for. There it is, the water key, but before you take it, you gotta listen to this blue dragon tell you that you need to find a person named Lila if you're in search of the Eternal Ring. Now that you've got the water key, you'll make your way back to the expedition base. After backtracking through the dungeon, you'll come across a gruesome sight. The base you are fixing to call home has been razed to the ground, its inhabitants strewn about motionless. You see one of the guards stagger forward, his abdomen bloodied. Behind him is what was once his sick captain, his visage half twisted into that of a crow demon. He strikes a terrifying blow to the guard, and then...
You little rats of the elders. Is that the best you can do? The Eternal Ring is mine! Mine! Mine!
Not only does his line cut out halfway through the dialogue, but his delivery is absolutely hilarious. I walk around and talk to these maimed and wounded people, and I just don't actually believe they're dying based on their performance. This base was supposed to be the beginnings of a home base, with NPCs that you would have grown to love, and it's prematurely ripped away from you. This was fixing up to be an extremely impactful scene, and I'm just sitting here laughing at it instead. There was a serious opportunity to get me really invested in this story, and it's been squandered. Now, I'm not going to stop during every instance of bad voice acting to let you listen, because this video would be way too long if I did. Just assume every voice acting performance left me wanting, because they did. After the tragedy, you'll eventually decide to move forward toward the blue door and, holy shit, double feature? I'm on a roller coaster of emotions here because I just got done with a cool-ass boss fight, was disappointed by a promising narrative moment, and now I'm being thrust into another boss fight. This one's pretty cool as well. He's a werewolf who's a lot faster than you. He does jumping attacks, which force you to aim up and swing if you don't want to get hit, but he has low stature, which means you'll have to aim a little bit lower to hit him in a neutral scenario. It's an interesting balancing act, which requires a lot more execution than I would have expected from a game with controls such as this. By the way, can we talk about the boss music? Oh, who am I kidding? I'm the one making the video. Of course we can. The song that plays when you fight a boss in the game is super cool. Each fight begins with a slow tune that ramps up as you eye up your opponent, preparing to react to their first movements. As tension ramps up, the song kicks into high gear with pounding snares that remind me of that one time in junior high marching band when I was so into the music that my drumsticks were snapping in half midway through the song. The song gets me pumped. Not just this song, but the entire OST is fucking fantastic. Here, I'll give you a little sample. I'm really happy that this guy Rocket Baby exists because he not only interviewed the Evergrace sound director, but he also interviewed Tsukasa Saitoh, one of the composers for the soundtrack of Eternal Ring. Saitoh himself composed the main theme for the game, and he and the two other composers, Keiichiro Sagawa and Yuji Kanda, used that main theme as a motif for the composition of the rest of the music. He states that this is one of the reasons he was able to create such unity of sound while having 3 separate people compose music for the game. I'll link the interview in the description if you're interested. Rocket Baby's website is kind of broken and it doesn't seem like it's been updated since 2002, but like I said, I'm very grateful it's still available today. Now you'll need to move forward and find this Lila that the water dragon spoke of. She's the only lead you have towards getting the Eternal Ring. You enter the blue door and what's this? A weird circle near the save point? As you cautiously step into the circle, you're greeted with mystical music and a strange floating being. As you approach, he offers to grant you ancient magics. Now we know the purpose of the gems you've been finding on enemies. All magic in Eternal Ring is cast through, well, rings. You'll use gems you've collected to craft different types of rings and thus gain new magic. Basically, offensive rings cost empty ring bases to craft. You will have been finding these in chests as you've moved along. Attribution rings, or as I will be referring to them from now on, support rings, do not require a base and only require gems. Offensive rings contain spells that you can hit things with, as well as any other activatable type spell. Support rings are passive, giving you some sort of bonus. I'm going to tell you right now that this system is fucky. There is no way I would have known how the ring making system works without searching for a guide first. To be honest, I really wanted this to be some sort of recipe-based system where specific combinations of gems would create interesting spells to be used, but that's not really the case. Basically, each of the 6 pedestals here takes a gem. The left side determines what element the spell will use. Red is fire, yellow is earth, purple is dark, you get the idea. If you have gems of different typings on the left side, it'll choose one of those elements for your spell randomly. The right side determines the strength of the gem. If you put all high tier gems over there, you'll get a high tier spell. If you put low tier gems, you'll get a low tier spell. If you mix high tier and low tier gems, it'll be random between the two. Alright, sick. Now look at all the different rings you can make. One final thing to note is that if you fill every slot with a tier 4 gem of the same element, you'll get a special spell. The same goes for filling every slot with a tier 5 gem. You got 10 fingers. You can put 5 offense rings and 5 support rings on at the same time. This is a D&D player's wet dream. After fucking around with ring making and probably saving and loading a bunch to experiment, you'll move onward. Gotta find Lila. You'll make your way through some ruins and fight some prancy orcs as well as some other interesting creatures. Eventually, you'll meet the merchant from Resident Evil 4.
It looks like you've opened the water gate.
He'll give you a ring that you can use to protect yourself from some poison that's ahead. So you'll venture forth into a cave and you'll instantly get poisoned as you delve into it. I know you just gave me a poison barrier spell, but I'd really prefer some sort of visual clarity for the poison. The ground shimmers a bit when you get to the bottom, but that really didn't feel clear enough. Make the ground green or do some particles or some shit. Anywho, you'll cast your fancy magics and try to pass through Blighttown Cave as fast as possible. On the other side, you'll meet some treasure hunters or something. Actually, the last shopkeeper you'll see in the game. I didn't buy anything from him because I already had plenty of items and I had been finding health items in abundance. As you continue onward through a twisting maze of tunnels... Oh wait, is that a dragon? I guess he's sleeping. You know, I'm a firm believer in Chekhov's dragon. If you show me a dragon, you should use the dragon. I tried looking into this. I guess you can wake him up with dark magic, but then he just kills you. He also never shows up again. Kinda sucks because he's the coolest looking dragon in the game. As you continue onward through a twisting maze of tunnels, you'll start to see more orcs. These ones have slings. This is the point in the game where you'll be introduced to the mechanic of enemy ranged attacks going through walls and constantly being pelted by ranged attacks at all times. Eternal Ring does not handle having a lot of enemies around very well. The combat system is not built well for it, and it's not just this particular area. From this point onward, you'll be constantly under a barrage of ranged attacks from everywhere. whether it be enemies flying in the air or enemies chilling behind walls chucking rocks at you. This is where the game started to lose its magic for me gameplay-wise. You'll meet up with the guard from the base earlier. He tells you that this island is filled with mages from a place named Solcia, and that he's hunting down his captain to try to kill him. This is also where it's hinted to you that you may also be Solcian because they're the only people who can use magic power from the rings. He heads off ahead of you and continues his mission to put down his former captain. At this point, I'm more invested in his story than my own. Next, we'll continue to the Hall of 1,000 Elevators. I don't like this level. The elevator sounds are loud as shit, and sometimes they get stuck looping into an obnoxious rumble. The whole idea of this area is that you're supposed to not get hit by these ranged enemies as you cross the area in horizontal elevators, but they'll never hit you even if you stand still. It's kind of just like an auto-scroll type area without any interesting stuff to look at. Remember that guard guy we talked about? Yeah, he's dead. You find him laying on the ground. You can read his journal. It tells you that he was transforming into a monster just like his captain, and he killed himself before it could take effect. He claims this is due to the power of the Eternal Ring. It's okay though, we'll get a chance to revenge our favorite NPC later. We acquire a fire key, go through a red door, and behold, there's our beloved captain. I'm going to show you what every boss fight is from here on out.
Hurry, get the Eternal Ring.
Wait, are you telling me to get the ring, or are you telling yourself to get the ring? This is what Eternal Ring becomes. Those cool sword fights are a thing of the past, and this is a ring game now. We're going to hold R1 to strafe in a circle and mash magic. It actually could have been like that the whole time, I just didn't realize how busted magic was until 3/4 of the way through the game. Once you've dispatched the captain, you'll come back out and talk to the Resident Evil 4 merchant. He lets you know that he's been on the island for 20 years and that he and his king are slowly changing into monsters. This is the power of the ring. You slowly transform until you have no sense of self and are forced to roam the land. Wait, this sounds like Dark Souls. Hey, this lava level, also not super cool. You'll almost immediately be hit by these doors. You walk up to them, they say sealed by magic. So I'm like, okay, great, puzzle, fun, woo. I walk around looking for a switch. I try hitting it with magic, to no avail. Apparently I was supposed to hit the little circle on the door with a fireball. Had to look that up because I'm apparently too smooth-brained for such a thing. Then I see a phoenix thing. Okay, we'll try to kill it. My path is blocked by some lava, so I probably have to kill the monster to get rid of it. I try killing the monster for a good amount of time with no luck. Eventually stumped, I look it up again. That lava area, it's a phoenix nest. You have to kill the nest to kill the phoenix. The phoenix is actually immortal. Once again, this is a problem of clarity because how the fuck am I supposed to know that the pool of lava on the ground is what I need to kill and not the monster? Regardless, you make your way through the area and meet this weird scaly dude. This is apparently the merchant's king, and the merchant is named Nell, we find out finally. Also, the filter on this guy's voice is fucking hilarious.
The Eternal Ring was right there before my eyes.
Regardless, he's just a lore character. He tells you that his kingdom invaded this island and essentially caused the curse that turns people into monsters. Then a big red dragon pops out of the lava and roasts him. It's low-key funny. Lila shows up at this convenient moment and tells you to follow her. She helps you escape the dragon, and this next area isn't really that important. Oh look, Dark Souls ring. You'll go through and fight a chicken boss. Whatever. At this point in the game, the only thing I'm worried about is my waning healing supplies. I'll start running past a lot of enemies in order to conserve my items. In the beginning, you're given an abundance of healing items as drops, treasure items, whatever. This leads you to believe that it will be like that for most of the game. You don't even need to use healing items until the ranged monsters come out in droves. I don't necessarily think they should have added a third vendor, but I definitely think that there should have been more healing item drops in the late stages of the game. This is obviously something I could rectify on a second playthrough by stocking up on more items in the early game, but most people won't do a second playthrough. We come across Nell one more time. He tells you the truth about the ring. It's not really a ring, but a cage used to contain something terrible. He also... Okay, don't ever do this shit. Don't give me that, as you already know, bullshit. If I knew, then you wouldn't be here telling me. Anyway, yeah, Nell dies or some shit. I'm really beyond caring about these NPCs. If the game's gonna treat them as if they're disposable, I guess I should as well. As you draw nearer and nearer to Lila, you'll make your way through a library puzzle. It's more like killing some gargoyles and flipping 2 switches, but whatever. You'll then find the best ring in the game, and it's a support ring. It makes all your spells seek their targets, so when you combine it with the branching ring, which splits your attacks in half, it effectively doubles your damage output. This is pretty much the only interesting ring mechanic I'd seen in the game. Okay, now you finally get to talk to Lila. Great. She tells you about a people named the Elysians. They're essentially proto-Solcians. They created a perfect life form, but he couldn't feel emotions. They decided to name him Soulless, which is a stupid name, but okay. He has a better name in the Japanese version. Eventually, he started killing people for fun, and they sealed him away inside the Eternal Ring, which is a prison beyond space and time. All the Elysians left the island and forgot they were Elysians and became Soulsians. Lila is convinced she can teach Soulless how to be a real boy with real emotions, and oh, how right she is. Lila leaves because Soulless is throwing a tantrum and shaking the island, so you go follow her path. That water dragon from the beginning, he shows up again and tells you that he was the leader of the Elysians. He thinks that it's impossible to fix Soulless and that we should go murder that child. Honestly, I'm down. Let's go murder a child. Time for the worst level in the game. Flying enemies with arrows constantly pelting you from all sides through walls because why not? I run through most of them and get to the top of this tower because I need to collect 2 more keys to get Soulless. There's a dragon up there. It's a really uneventful fight. He drops a key. You'll then go to the painted world of Ariandel and meet this NPC. He actually doesn't have much to say, just telling you that you should get off the island as soon as possible. Don't worry, buddy, I'm trying. I zoop through this snowy level, bobbing and weaving through enemies because I'm completely out of healing items by now, and grab the last key. I ain't fucking around, it's endgame time. I open up the chamber, we get a cutscene. By the way, Soulless has the worst voice on earth. Listening to these long-ass cutscenes with him are actually unbearable, and he's really uncomfortable to look at. Lila is desperately trying to get him to learn how to feel feelings before I come and murk his ass. She thinks she hears me coming, so she leaves to try to ask me to give her time to help Soulless. Finally, we start our trek through the kiln of the first dragon. Dying here forces us to watch the entire Soulless cutscene again, which is AIDS, but we also have no healing items, so once again we're running past every enemy. We eventually come across Lila. She's lying on the floor and dies shortly after you see her. Why did she die, you ask? The person at the door wasn't me. It was our beloved captain. This is his final form, so I'll call him Shin Captain. He really wants that ring. Once again, we'll give him the old spin in a circle and cast magic at him trick. His magic actually comes out really fast, so it's not crazy for you to get hit if you stop moving for even a second. Still a boring boss fight though, because magic is just broken. Then we'll get to Soulless. He doesn't understand why Lila died, and now he's angry. He has these 3 pods that shoot projectiles at you. You'll spin in a circle and kill him with magic. After you commit infanticide, you're instructed to leave now that you've dealt with Soulless. With a last glance at Soulless's corpse, you depart, your mission complete. After you leave, Soulless gets up. This part was actually really sad to me, even though at this point I was very disinterested in the going-ons of the story. Soulless pleads with Lila's lifeless corpse to get up. Don't worry though, Eternal Ring finds a way to take an emotion I'm feeling and fuck it up. Soulless turns into Grey Dr. Manhattan and once again things feel tonally fucked up. Any emotion I'm feeling is just goofed up by the voice acting being goofy and bad. So then we get some epilogue action. You tell the king that the research team died and nothing more. I guess you go back to the island at some point and bring adult Soulless back to the kingdom and hang out with him for the rest of your life or something. I don't even know how Cain would know that Soulless is still alive, but okay. Eternal Ring is an interesting game from an interesting time. It doesn't play like most RPGs I've played in my life, and if you were buying a PS2 on launch, this is one of the only RPGs you would have access to. If you're coming from modern RPGs, it's gonna feel super clunky, but honestly give it like 20 minutes and you'll be controlling your tank of a character like a pro. I think this game had a lot of potential. There were some moments where I was really having a lot of fun with the game and was truly invested in the going-ons of the characters. I know I harped on H-Text localization in the Evercrace, but at least that game was confusing as shit. Eternal Ring has an actual story that I can follow that's really hurt by being rife with grammar errors and lukewarm voice actor performances, especially when the soundtrack is so great in contrast. I also feel that the magic is a bit too tuned up, and I know the game is about using magic, but I feel like it trivializes the bosses, which should have been the most fun part of the game, and enables a really boring play style. Maybe the reason I tried to stick with a sword so long is that aiming magic at things in a 3D space with tank controls in the first person is an actual nightmare. Honestly, you could probably replay this game and mess around with the magic system. I'm sure there's some fun to be had steamrolling through the game with different types of spells. For me though, I think Eternal Ring is going to be a hit it and quit it type scenario. In a few of my earlier videos, I had a running gag where I would talk about these 2-for-1 hot dogs from a local convenience store, and I would weigh the amount of money you'd spend on the game versus how many hot dogs you would get for that value. I realized about 3 videos in that if I was going to do that, I would have to explain it in every single video or else it wouldn't work, so I'm hanging that bit up. Instead, I'm going to talk about whether or not the game is worth your time. The game took me about 8.5 hours to beat, but it probably could have been done in about 7 hours if I hadn't gotten stuck the few times that I did. So is Eternal Ring worth your time? Do you like King's Field? Are you interested in dipping your toes into old FromSoft games because you really like Dark Souls? Do you have the luxury of both owning an import copy of the game as well as speaking Japanese? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I'd say fuck it. You're not going to have a terrible time, and there's worse games you could play. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't recommend this game to anyone else. Also, shoutouts to Discount Gumshoe for making videos and driving me to competitively script write against him. You should check out his channel. Very cool. Awesome. Roll credits. Boing, yoing, 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 yoing.